And now, stand-up community subscribers and listeners from around the globe, it's time to Stand Up with Pete Dominic, where we ask the important questions that impact you, your family, and your community. Such as, would limiting my fast food intake to one fish sandwich per week change my mercury to red blood cell ratio? And with the final season of The Walking Dead coming to an end, where could I turn to satisfy my craving for zombie-induced human bloodletting? And now, the podcast host who would gladly donate blood during the next local zombie apocalypse, Pete Dominic!
You know what, Pete Co., that reminds me, I have not donated blood in a while. It's time to sign up, and so should you, folks. Hello and welcome to Stand Up. Very happy that you are listening to this podcast. I hope that you will tell your friends. I'm here every day interviewing two super smart people, having conversations with them about all the things that matter to us and make our lives richer, better, easier to understand, all the issues that we deal with, and that is no exception today. I have three guests joining me. That's right, three. Normally I have two. Every once in a while, just one. But today I've got three because I wanted to talk to Maura, Quint yesterday, as I do on most Mondays, but we couldn't make it happen. I couldn't make it happen then. I really wanted to talk to Jeff Jarvis about a bunch of things, and I certainly wanted to know more about Russia and get a perspective, and I always love talking to Bill B. in D.C. So that's what I did. I reached out to all three of them. I had three conversations that I'm going to share with you coming up. I think you're going to like them. I'm not sure who listens to all of them. You can always jump around, pick which guests you like the most, which topics you like the most, and always I'm trying to do a little bit of a news update for you as well. And I can't do any of it without your paid subscription. So sign up now. Go to standupwithpete.com, standupwithpete.com, and support this independent media outlet where you get news and analysis and friendship, because we're making a whole lot of friends with each other, if you want, in our community. And tomorrow night, we're going to hang out Wednesday, not Thursday this week, but Wednesday, because I'm going skiing with a couple of my high school buddies on Thursday. So let's hang out Wednesday night at 8 p.m. I hope to see you there. Now, let's do the news. Time for the last 24. Well, it would seem that the only story in the world right now, according to most major media outlets, are that Vladimir Putin, the dictator in Russia, has ordered troops into Ukraine. Oil is near $100 a barrel. A UN emergency meeting late into the night. It's on, is the headline at the Drudge Report. Washington Post headline, Putin orders troops into two separatist Ukraine regions. ABC News, U.S. urges Ukrainian president to head to Lviv for his safety. And the Biden White House, the American government, has responded with sanctions and will put in more tomorrow, apparently. The likelihood of a diplomatic solution, quote, diminishing hour by hour, according to National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan on ABC News. And actually, let's go to his deputy. This is a guy named John Feinert. He is the Deputy National Security Advisor. He was on MSNBC last night with Alex Wagner, who was in for Chris Hayes on All In.
Let's just talk about the limited sanctions that the White House announced today. Those are only against the breakaway regions, not against Russia itself. And those sanctions were announced before Putin signed this decree ordering peacekeeping troops to the breakaway region. Is there going to be a separate response from the White House to that move by Putin?
Yes, Aaron, there will. The statement that we put out tonight when we announced the executive order in immediate response to the appalling, although not surprising, action that President Putin took indicated that we would have further actions that we would be taking tomorrow. We will continue to assess what Russia does overnight. But based on the steps they've already taken today, which are clear and direct violations of the only agreement that exists between the various parties to the Ukraine conflict, the Minsk agreement, we are going to be imposing significant sanctions on Russia tomorrow.
Okay, can you give us a sense of the lines here, right? The U.S. and allies have said repeatedly that these crippling economic sanctions, these crippling economic measures will be put in place if Russia further invades Ukraine. When does that line get crossed? What constitutes an invasion in the eyes of the Biden White House?
So we are going to continue to observe. Again, we have seen reports of statements that the Russians have made about their intention to deploy peacekeepers. Peacekeepers is obviously a euphemism and a lie, as the Russians have been lying about their presence, military presence in the Donbass now for 8 years. So we're going to observe what they actually do, not just what they say, and we will respond accordingly. But our response, as we've already indicated, is going to include significant sanction steps starting tomorrow.
There you go. John Feiner, the Deputy National Security Advisor. Like nobody was working on President's Day, apparently. You had the Deputy National Security Advisor, not the main guy. You had Alex Wagner, not Chris Hayes. And now you got John Heilman in for Nicole Wallace, also on MSNBC. I never take days off. Who are these people? All right. I took a day off last week. But anyway, John Heilman in for Nicole Wallace on MSNBC, and he had a very somber, scared-looking former U.S. ambassador to Russia, Mike McFaul. He speaks Russian. He listened to Vladimir Putin's speech yesterday, and, well, here's their exchange.
It's about what Vladimir Putin said in this speech tonight in Moscow, what it means, what its implications are, and is it really as bad as I characterized it in the lead-in to this block?
I think it's worse. I liked what you said, but I think it's worse. So just to remind everybody, first he met with his Security Council and talked about why they needed to go ahead with the recognition of these two republics, these people's republics, by the way, Luhansk and Donetsk. Just a reminder, people's republics are what Stalin imposed in Eastern Europe after 1945, so there's an echo of that. Then he went on to national television. There is the shot. I haven't had a chance to listen to it all. It was a long speech, but I listened to a lot of it, John, in Russian. It was a very, very angry speech. This is a man who feels aggrieved. He feels like he's justified, and it sounded to me like there's much more to come besides just recognizing these two republics as independent countries. And then right after that speech, he sat down with the two leaders, the figurehead leaders of those two republics, and signed two agreements, one with each of them. One, recognizing their independence, and then two, agreements about their military cooperation. In other words, these two independent countries now are now allies of Russia.
There you go. Mike McFaul on MSNBC yesterday. He does not sound really optimistic and pretty scared. Pretty scary time, that's for sure. Julia Yaffe tweeting yesterday, remember this day. Very important day and developments yesterday. Here's my friend Clint Watts. He was on this show last week. He's a national security expert and of course, a MSNBC contributor. He was also on with John Heilman. They were kind of talking about some of the domestic politics and some of the different techniques that the Russians use and how they influence Americans, especially Republicans. I think I said it up right. Here it is.
John, it's a decades-long effort known as active measures, which was to win through the force of politics rather than the politics of force. And while Putin has been exposed for all of this disinformation, the Biden administration, the NATO allies, even people that might be pseudo fans of Putin recognize all the disinformation that has come out over the last 2 to 3 weeks as a pretext for war and don't believe it. And the only place you hear it is in the GOP in America. It's one of the strangest things I've ever seen. And so when you watch this, what Russia was able to do and what they were really able to advance is with the elevation of voices that are sympathetic to Russia's view, Donald Trump being the number one, and then all of his surrogate sent. It is absolutely comical. George Papadopoulos was literally tweeting out Russian disinformation alongside political opportunism over the past few days. And he is the guy who triggered the entire Russia investigation. He was the one that literally led to all of this coming out into the public. So when you look at this as it's come through, prior to 2016, the first people I talked to about Russian disinformation were GOP senators. Post 2016, I've not heard from one of them. So it's been a complete inversion, and that's only been able to happen through this constant media and information campaign from Moscow.
There you go, Clint Watts, enlightening us as always with his analysis of all the different impacts here domestically as well. And now let's go back to MSNBC, where Alex Wagner had the NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin in Ukraine. I'm set to talk to Terrell Starr in Ukraine tomorrow, but Aaron McLaughlin reporting on the public response in Ukraine.
You say that panic is the enemy there in Ukraine, but the president is giving remarks at 2 a.m. The troops are where they are. I mean, is there a palpable fear that there could be further westward push from these Russian troops, that the people of Kyiv have something to be worried about? Do you feel that? Is that something that's circulating at all among the citizenry?
Oh, absolutely. I was speaking earlier today, shortly following President Putin's address, to a former Zelensky advisor who told me that he thought the speech was ominous. He said that it had echoes of 1939 and that he believes that essentially what President Putin wants to do is take the whole of Ukraine. That is the view of a former Zelensky advisor. Other people feeling the same. So people here are extremely concerned and they're taking this very seriously. But what you don't see is people panicking. There aren't runs at the supermarket. There's no long lines of gas. Yes, some people have evacuated their children to the western portion of the country. Some have left Kyiv, but the vast majority remain here and conduct sort of business as usual. It's actually a very different picture in Donetsk and Luhansk, the separatist-controlled areas. We've seen women and children being evacuated over the past few days, thousands of them sent over into Russia aboard buses and trains, and they're being forced to leave their husbands and their fathers behind to fight in a war that has yet to be declared. I was texting with one woman who is in Donbass, in separatist-controlled Donbass, and she was telling me that she was absolutely terrified, but she did not want to leave her home. I asked her, who do you blame for this crisis? Even though she says separatists have been pointing the finger at Ukraine, she says she doesn't know who to blame. So people are scared on both sides tonight, Alex.
All right, let me just get one more analyst on MSNBC. Booked a lot of good people that I saw yesterday, so I guess I'm relying heavily on that network. Sorry about that. But David Folkenflik is an NPR media analyst, and I think this is a really important issue, how right-wing media stars and influencers have become cozied up with the autocrats, authoritarian dictators around the world, including, and most importantly, Tucker Carlson over at Fox News, who has the most viewers, and he has made friends with the autocrat in Hungary, Viktor Orban, and the way that he talks about Russia and Putin is certainly not a way that conservatives or Republicans ever talked about him. But he's clearly a guy who is not for democracy and is for autocracy. And here's that conversation between Alex Wagner, David Folkenflik, just 2 minutes of it. I thought this was really helpful and really important to mention and talk about.
David Folkenflik is a media correspondent for NPR, and he joins me now. David, it is extraordinary bedfellows, I guess would be the most euphemistic way of saying this. But let's just first talk about the power of Tucker Carlson. I believe it was the New York Times Magazine that quoted someone saying, he doesn't just report the news for American conservatives, he creates it. His echo chamber is not to be underestimated, not just in terms of viewership, David, but the way he can change the tide for otherwise fascistic leaders.
I think that he's playing a role in the absence, particularly of former President Trump deciding whether or not to run in 2024. That is otherwise unparalleled on the conservative right and the sort of pro-Trump wing of the Republican Party, the Trump sympathetic, the Trump agnostic. He is shaping where the Republican Party is going. If you look at lawmakers and whether or not they are attuned to what he has to say, most of them tend to be in the House, that's up for re-election every 2 years, or in the Senate in a cycle up for re-election, or mostly in a primary as a candidate trying to break through to get to the final ballot next November. And, they are loath to alienate him when he can come after them swinging, amplify their rivals in the primary, find ways to undermine them, hit at them in a way that will make donors shy away. Tucker Carlson is really playing a role, and he's explicitly doing for Putin, in a sense, what he's already done for Viktor Orban in Hungary, which is to take somebody who has espoused pretty anti-American ideals and clean them up and say, not only why should I care about what happens to Ukraine, as you heard in that clip that you so presciently played, but also right after he said, why shouldn't I root for Russia? Kind of laying bare the idea that I'm rooting for a vastly more powerful nation that just wants to dominate and repress a neighbor that it once controlled.
Yeah, it seems, I mean, he's saying explicitly, I'm rooting for Russia. This is a person who took his Fox News program to Hungary and interviewed Viktor Orban, who is an anti-democratic force in Europe. And following that, I believe Jeff Sessions, Mike Pence both visited Hungary, and CPAC is having a satellite conference in Hungary this year.
So, yeah, I think that's a super important development if you want to try to understand what's happening in America. Our former adversary, Russia, and communists and Vladimir Putin and anti-democracy movements are now popular within the right-wing movement. In America, we have an entire political party who is anti-democracy. I've talked with so many experts about that right here on this show, mostly Ruth Ben-Ghiat, who's a scholar on the issue, of course, who is always one to tweet, remember, the Republican Party is engaged in an all-out war on our democracy. It's a far-right party with an authoritarian political culture that sees violence as an acceptable means of getting and holding power. And they're led by people like Tucker Carlson, which is why I think that was an important conversation to share with you here on today's episode of Stand Up during the last 24. And there's one more thing I want to play for you, because this guy was a very important guy. Paul Farmer, who was the founder of Partners in Health, unexpectedly passed away in his sleep while in Rwanda. He was only 62 years old. This is a huge, huge loss. He saved millions and millions of lives on a massive scale. Selfless, brilliant, funny, sweet, compassionate is how he's being described. And he created at PIH, Partners in Health, on Twitter, at PIH. I've got a recurring donation going to them, have for a while, and I highly recommend you do as well. They do great work, one of the most effective organizations ever at combating disease worldwide, along with my friends at GiveWell. And it's just such a massive loss. Paul Farmer, gone at 62. Here's another quote. This is from Sanjay Gupta, CNN. We've lost a giant, a bright light in the world. My heart is with Dr. Paul Farmer's family and Partners in Health. This is the man who constantly pushed me to do more, to be more. The legacy left behind for so many around the world is undeniable. Rest in peace, my dear friend. So many moving tributes being put out there. John Green, he was deeply committed to the belief that all human lives had dignity, and he lived this belief for his entire career. And here is audio of him from 2012, before the opening of a beautiful new hospital in Haiti. He reflected on the realization of one of his dreams as they sat in the maternity ward of that new hospital. And the guy interviewing him, Dr. Jonathan Lepuc, said, "What stunned me with the most powerful statement about healthcare inequity I've ever heard." And here he is, in his own words, Paul Farmer.
What do you and your colleagues hope that you're giving birth to with all your efforts?
We want to be able to say, just once, that the quality of care we're giving to people living in abject poverty is as good as it would be if they were born in some ritzy part of Manhattan, say. I mean, that vision of equity and justice and decency is what we'd like to give birth to.
Paul Farmer, amazing guy, and did so much, gone way too soon. Wanted to make sure you knew of him and the organization Partners in Health, which I've plugged and talked about many times throughout my career here on this show. All right, well, that's all the audio I've got for you, but a lot more news stories. I think we've got a news dump jingle to lighten things up a little bit for us, as we do almost every night by Pete Coe. This dump is based on an arrest that was made with the help of a goat, apparently. Well, here we go.
Suspect flees across a field, over a fence he jumps. He's cornered by a random goat for today's news dump.
Yes, cornered by a random goat. I love it. All right, well, I got I think 14 stories. So let's do it, shall we? Let's start in California, where a stretch of Southern California beach was closed Monday to swimmers and surfers after up to 50 gallons of shit spilled into nearby waters. That's right, raw sewage, poopy, crap, all over the place. The Orange County Healthcare Agency said a blocked sewer line at a restaurant in Newport Bay caused a leak of untreated sewage according to the LA Times. The spill comes less than 2 months after a sewage main in Carlson, California failed, spewing millions of gallons of waste into Los Angeles harbor. So all those people who are always talking about California all the time, there's a negative story for you. Poop on the beach. Terrible. A U.S. border agent killed a man on a trail in Arizona. Authorities investigating the death of a man who was shot by a U.S. Border Patrol agent late Saturday, a few miles north of the Mexican border near the Arizona town of Douglas. Boris Johnson of the UK announces an end of all COVID restrictions in England. How about that? And Israel is opening its borders to unvaccinated tourists starting March 1st, which is going to be a lot of the very religious Orthodox Jewish folks, many of which we know here in our area did get vaccinated, but some of which certainly did hold out. So that'll be an interesting development in Israel and the UK. Mount Etna has roared back up to sue all kinds of action after a few months of relative quiet, sending up a 12-kilometer, 7.5-mile-high volcanic ash over eastern Sicily. Yikes. Buon fortuna, mi amici. U.S. Navy plans to launch a Mideast drone force alongside allies. I can't read. Allies? Really? I read that as allies. I'm not editing it. That horse that won the last year's Kentucky Derby, then died, his name is Medina Spirit. Well, it was stripped of the victory in last year's Kentucky Derby because it was doing drugs, and now it's dead as well. So that's a terrible story. Asian markets sink as tension between Ukraine and Russia climbs. The cartoon Arthur, is he a mouse? Arthur, it is coming to an end after 25 years. Oh man, 25 seasons on PBS Kids. My daughters watch Arthur when they were little. Arthur, the longest running kids animated series in history, known for teaching kindness, empathy, and inclusion through many groundbreaking moments to generations of viewers. According to the executive producer, reruns will be available on PBS Kids, so that's good. But seriously, was Arthur a mouse? What was Arthur? I don't know. You'll have to email me. I think he's a mouse. All right, and Britney Spears is going to be telling her life story. She's landed a book deal, $15 million. Well, that's going to get even uglier for that family, is my guess. Saw this report in the Washington Post. Stand your ground laws have been linked to an 11% rise in U.S. firearms, according to a study. The fiercely debated, increasingly common in the United States stand your ground laws, which I think are absolutely horrific, reprehensible only in the U.S. kind of laws, remove the duty to retreat from an attacker when possible before responding with potentially deadly force, is the way that it is written in the Washington Post article. Anyway, those laws associated with an 11% increase in monthly firearm homicide rates. I'm sure they were all good shootings, and everybody were heroes. Another terrible outcome of COVID and the pandemic, apparently, is that headstone makers have struggled to serve grieving families as supply chain woes continue in the monument industry, including crucial materials like granite, saws, and rubber stencils in short supplies. So I just thought that was worth mentioning as well. I probably should have ended on the Arthur story. Yeah, Arthur. Mouse? What is it? What was he? Was he a boy? Did he identify? Anyway, I loved Arthur. I think it was great. Oh, he's an aardvark. He's an aardvark. All right, you don't have to email me, those of you that started to. And that is today's news dump, everybody. All right, let's open. I've got Maura, Quint, Jeff Jarvis, and Bill B in D.C., and that's the order I'm going to play them in because Maura and I had a great conversation with probably the most levity in it. Jeff Jarvis and I covered a lot of ground, a bunch of different issues. I highly recommend you listen to that one because I learned a lot from Jeff and his takes on things. And as always, Bill B is just great talking about what's going on in Russia. Ukraine gave us a great look at it, and a great look at it. That was fun. All right. Well, listen, folks, you know Maura Quint. She's the best. She's on Twitter at Behind Your Back. She's now on a whole bunch of other shows, apparently. We talk about that at the beginning. She's co-hosting the podcast, My So-Called Book Club now. Check that out. Support her on Patreon. Follow her on Twitter at Behind Your Back. Her day job, of course, is as the Wealth Tax Campaign Director at AmericansForTaxFairness.org. Check her out there. And right now, check her out here on Stand Up with an introductory jingle by Pete Coe.
When sunrise gives you a side ache, it's Maura Mondays.
Well, it's not Monday because I couldn't make it work yesterday, but I am always happy and feel a little OCD if I don't talk to Maura at the beginning of the week. So it's Tuesday, and I'm happy to see you and have you in conversation, even though you continue to have an affair with this other podcast.
I'm having an affair with many podcasts.
Oh no! How many others are there?
Well, I mean, I have gone on the Hallmark podcast. It's Christmas Town a couple of times, and I'm sorry to say, enjoyed it a lot. And then I have done my podcast, which is my so-called book club. But here's the part I didn't really want to tell you. I went on Jesse the Body Ventura's show.
You did?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
Which his podcast? First of all, nobody calls him the Body still, but anyway.
I do. I call him the Body
Apparently.
still.
Did you call him the body by any chance to his face?
No, I really wanted to.
Maura, it's great to have you on the show, Maura. Really. Is it now his a podcast or his, like, doesn't he have a show on RT?
Yeah, it's a show, but I'm counting that as podcast. I'm counting all things in which I speak into a microphone as podcasts.
Did they make you feel better and happier than joining me here?
No, it was
what
a
do they have that I don't
frankly.
have?
Well, I mean, I don't call you the Body. It would be nice to have a better nickname for you, Pete. Could you be Pete the Head, maybe? I'm not sure. Pete the Feet. Oh, we talked about your feet before. Pete the Feet rhymes. It's nice. I like that, actually.
Pete's childlike feet.
Pete
Dominic.
The Feet.
Okay, so I don't have a nickname. Fine. We're not going to force one.
Okay. Yeah.
But do they stimulate you intellectually the way I do?
It was scary. I had to go on and talk about my real job. Like I get to talk about whatever I want with you. And there I had to talk economic policy, which was hilarious because I definitely watched this person as a wrestler when I was like 7 years old. And now I'm just like, yes, let's discuss financial policy. You know, there are several tax the rich proposals that are currently moving through.
I got to watch
Congress.
this.
Like it was ridiculous.
They didn't have a jingle for you, did they?
They did not. Not to my knowledge, unless they added one in. But no, I don't think so.
What about the podcast that you're co-hosting, my so-called book club? You guys did another book this week, Christopher Pike book, yeah?
We did, yeah. Master of Murder, and we had John Idarola on as well. So
from the Young Turks?
Yeah, that's the guy.
Why him on that book? Because
he replied to me on Twitter that he was reading it. And I was just like, this is fantastic. Great. Let's do it.
Oh, he seems like a great guest. Was he good?
He was wonderful.
Yeah.
He was absolutely wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. This is just terrible. I'm sorry. This feels really bad right now. I feel as though I'm just running you through all of the horrible things I've done. And then I suppose at the end of it, will you forgive me? Is there like a moment? Do we have like a Catholic kind of confessional here?
No, you know what? Actually, as long as you haven't also met any of those people in person, I think we're good.
I haven't. Just
I'm
my co-host for my show.
Right.
But
well,
otherwise, no.
Can't compete with. She's like your best friend your whole life. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's true.
As long as you agree to never be in the same room with any of the people that you're talking to, then I guess I would really feel like that's crossing the line if we're allowed to be. Which brings me to a question I did want to ask you, which is where are we in the pandemic? I mean, you and I haven't met in person ever, is what I'm getting at, in case anybody's ever wondering. But what does it feel like to you where we are at right now? It's not only COVID, it's maybe trying to get back to normal. It's politics. It's what's going on in Russia. It's the cost of things. It feels like there's always another shoe to drop. Am I alone in this zeitgeist? What's happening? What's happening out there in the world?
No, I think that's right, because we haven't gotten through anything. There's always this sort of next bracing for what's about to happen. I mean, every time that we've thought that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, a train has just come right at us, like every single time. So yeah, I think we're all kind of on edge. I know it's very frustrating. I don't know when I don't think we necessarily get back to normal. I think we need to redefine what normal is. And so that is a stress as well, trying to figure that out.
Have you been able to do it? Do you know people who, I mean, are we talking about what normal is? We just don't know. We need a couple, I feel like we need an actual season in each time period where we aren't wearing masks and doing all the COVID protocols, the spring, summer, a winter. And only then can we, as we start to do the things that we used to love or the new things that we might have discovered, start to feel like it's back to normal. Like I went skiing a couple times last week. I'm actually going this week, and there'll be protocols and vaccination checks and things like that. And I feel like you need like a year without it before things return not to normal, because I guess that's never going to happen, but any semblance of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point too, there's certainly a sense of where I am. It's very cold. We're in similar climate zones. And so, you know, there's still this kind of like, don't want to be indoors with people. And now there's this hope for like, well, it'll start to warm up and we'll be able to do stuff outdoors more. And then we'll have a little bit more of a normalcy because you'll see people. And somehow that feels like that's reasonable. Like once we're outside, it's not as scary. I mean, we know it doesn't transfer as quickly when you're outdoors. So there is that kind of a sense of maybe that will start to feel a little more normal. But I don't know. I mean, I'm certainly braced for the next variant to come along.
You are. You feel like it's totally. You feel like it's inevitable. I don't know. I just know that I can't let my guard down, because I did that. Like in the fall, I started to be like, no, it's fine. We're getting vaxxed. It's all good. And then we got hit again. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what separates people on the spectrum in terms of however optimistic you are in the face of reality or not. And you're absolutely right. When you let yourself be more comfortable, and then we had to lock back down, or we had, everybody was getting sick with Omicron. And so you don't want to let yourself out again. And also the winter comment is a good one too. But I think I'm a little further in the spectrum. Like I want to let myself believe that there's not another bad variant coming. I want to believe that. I think there's not, I've decided.
That's just it. It's kind of like a belief in the afterlife, right? Like we don't know. We have no way to predict. So, whatever comforts you the most. But I'm the sort of person who hates being disappointed. I hate getting my hopes up and having them smashed. That's way worse to me than just going, no, bad things will probably happen. You should just accept that. So for me, it's more comforting to think like, okay, something else is going to happen.
Right.
Just expect that. But, if you're the other sort of person, it's probably more comforting to say, no, everything's going to be fine.
That's a really good way of putting it. And I think there's all different types of people out there on the spectrum on feeling that way in terms of, I don't know what you want to call it, pessimism, optimism, or realism. It sounds like I've always felt that way about you, that you're pretty much a realist. But the idea that not allowing yourself to get too, excited because the fall is too hard. It's so common. I mean, it's certainly that way with relationships, I guess, jobs or something, but I don't know.
Are you just generally feeling senses of doom and destruction? I feel like people are generally pretty low right now. That's what I've noticed.
Yes, I feel that way as well. I check in with folks every Thursday night here with our hangouts, and we have pretty, vulnerable, honest conversations. I hear from them all over the country, and I feel like we're talking about what's happening, a general concern about the end of America, that you're seeing crazy people, being platformed every single day. That one contributes to me, the kind of anti-vax movement gaining traction, what happened in Canada, there being this acknowledgement, the influence of people like anyone from Joe Rogan to Alex Jones, like seeing a Congresswoman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's just so way far out there, but she still somehow got elected as a Congresswoman, and then going on with that guy, Alex Jones, who said what he did about the Sandy Hook families, much as everything else. Like that kind of thing really gets me. Really, I'm like, that's where we are. That's the, I guess, Overton window, a congressperson on Alex Jones' actual show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it gets to me too. I mean, the only thing I try to, I guess, remember is humanity has always been terrible, right? We're not like, this isn't a unique moment in time per se. It's unique because of the circumstances, the technology, those types of things. We haven't had those before. But humanity has kind of always been the same. And there's always been just awful people who are looking to take advantage of others, who are elevated for terrible reasons. Like, that's just happened over and over and over. And we're not special. We haven't gotten rid of that yet. So for some reason, I find that vaguely comforting, I guess, because humanity has continued and good has still at times triumphed or been able to be elevated above the bad forces. Not always, often not, but still, like, we know that those fights sometimes can be won. I don't know. Maybe I'm just clinging to something there, but
well, I don't know. I always like to think most people are good. Like today, Paul Farmer died he was only 62, but he worked at Partners in Health, and he was in charge of all these amazing nonprofits, saved millions of lives of children in places like Haiti and other really hard hit by natural disasters and diseases. Like, amazing guy. And so really sad to see him, die suddenly at the age of 62, but like saved millions of lives. Like, I always want to believe that most people are good or somehow decent, but
yeah, I think most people have the capacity for good, but that doesn't necessarily, I think we all have the capacity for good and for evil.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we are necessarily any one thing ever. So it's really, to me, more about trying to rouse the good in others and rouse it in yourself and try and allow that to dominate. But it's a constant fight because it's not just good guys versus bad guys.
That's a huge element of Stand Up with Pete Dominic, rousing the good in yourself and others.
Yeah. Stand up for the good. Look at us. Aw, we're very inspirational here.
Speaking
today,
of
Pete.
standing up for the good, Ted Lasso is a great show. You and I have talked about how good that show is in the past. But yesterday there's a tweet, and we want to talk about this tweet from a funny comedian, and its reaction as it pertains to other kinds of fandom, because this is an interesting and important kind of cultural commentary, and I always love talking with you about that. So, comedian's name is Megan Beth Coaster. She tweets at Born Feral. She wrote, "I've never seen an episode of Ted Lasso, but its fans have big, quote, childless adult whose entire personality is predicated on their love of Disneyland energy," end quote, energy. And the reactions to it came hard and fast in that the general thing was, if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say anything at all. And then all the way to being outraged that anybody would criticize a thing that I like, that you like. Right. And you had a good reaction to it as well. But I grabbed a few of these just to read, and then we can kind of talk about them. But one person wrote, "The worst part is it's only getting shitted on because it's a show that focuses on the kindness people are capable of. There's dozens of badly written shows that focus on cynicism and lethargy. Cough. Euphoria. I don't know. My kids watch that show. That nobody ever shits on. Dark doesn't mean good, compelling art." That was a real. What do you want to say about it?
That's just ridiculous. People shit on all of the every single one of these has had jokes. There's not a pop culture thing out there that someone hasn't made a joke about. So,
a lot of blue check people that were offended. Nancy,
offended.
Yeah, Nancy Lee Grahn. Or perhaps they're just intelligent, kind-hearted adults who enjoy watching a show with clever writing that is uplifting and acted beautifully. That's just two real quick, but your comments on that
people
tweet.
are mad at me, Pete. They're mad at me because I'm not towing the line, even though I am fine with Ted Lasso. I enjoyed it. I have some problems with it, but I won't get into those because they'll come for me. But I've enjoyed watching the show.
Now I can't find yours.
Well, I responded just that I'm a mom who thinks Ted Lasso is fine, and I think that the replies are unhinged. That was the one thing I responded.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was really over the top and really intense, and there were so many bad faith readings of the tweet as well, which was, you can say it's a funny joke to make about a fandom, or you can say it's not funny. Those are fine. But it should probably be something that you read and then move on with your day. Fandom is not an identity the way sort of race or gender or religion is in any sort of protected class, but people respond with that level of like pure, like intensity that you are somehow, even if it's a throwaway joke, you are attacking the very core of their being.
You're marginalizing and discriminated against me because I love the comic series ElfQuest.
Right.
That's where I've been really punished for my love of ElfQuest and ridiculed. I didn't know
ElfQuest was a thing, but now I'm going to make fun of you nonstop for it. I hope you're prepared for that. I got to look it up so I can like get the jokes going.
I'm not. It's really hard to be a person who loves something that people want to make fun of like that, because I like elves that have sex and they're polyamorous and they're warriors.
Like lots of people who love elves who have sex. I mean, I don't know that people know that they love it, but I feel like there would be a large group of people on board with this.
Fandom is a word that references all of the fans of a particular genre of a thing, music, art, TV, whatever. It's the fandom of, Trekkies, maybe the original fandom or something. I don't know. But that's what that word means. And what your point is you can be a fan of, as long as it's like not hurting anybody. And even, I mean,
I wouldn't go with like, oh, I'm a fan of Nazism, but like I'm talking pop culture here. Yes, there are fans of every sort of thing. And the element that, I guess the part that bugs me is that this type of a joke gets made constantly about every group.
Yeah.
And no one cares for the most part. Like, it just goes by. And so most of the people who are reacting right now have seen this joke made about so many other groups. And it's just, who cares? No big deal. They laugh even or chime in. But like the moment it hits something you love, the response is so explosive. And that, I guess, gets to me because, I guess just because in general, hypocrisy starts to bug me, and it feels a lot like hypocrisy. But
even if you don't know if it's hypocrisy because you don't know if the person, wouldn't be reacting, differently or similar to something else. But I don't know. But the sensitivity of it just seems Tony Posanski. I mean, I have a family with awesome kids, and I love Ted Lasso. But since you haven't seen an episode, I'll consider you an expert. Like, I can't even take that guy at all anymore. Do I know who that guy is? I don't know, but
I do. But yeah, I mean, like that's the kind of thing. Is her tweet also is one, she's not attacking the show. She's making fun of the fandom. She's not. You don't need to have seen the show to comment. Two, a lot of people are like, you're making fun of childless adults. To my knowledge, this comedian is childless. That's not the statement. The statement is the type of person who is a grown adult who does not have kids but loves Disneyland. That's a particular personality type that she is aligning with. Has nothing to do with whether or not you have kids. It's like loving a childlike thing, even though you don't have children moving you into that. It was just fascinating to me to watch that blow up. But at the same time, I will say, like, I'm a woman online. I make jokes about all sorts of things. I'm political. I get hate by Nazis a lot. I'm Jewish. I get rape threats. I get all the fun stuff of being a woman online.
Those are all just from me this week.
I mean, it's been
I've been busy.
It's a light week, actually, Pete. Like,
I'm sorry.
Come on. Like,
step it up.
Yeah. I need my fix, of my hate. But
well, the truth is the only major amount of hate I got was when the people calling me a pedophile every day. And you actually managed that crisis for me.
That's because I'm so used to it. Like, it was nothing to me. But the couple of times that I've gotten the most like pile-ons, one was when I made a joke about Billie Joe Armstrong of Green Day not being punk. Oh my goodness. Like,
really?
Yeah, that like really upset Billie Joe Armstrong fans. They were really mad at me and were like instantly really like personal and hateful. I had a joke about the LA Rams winning the Super Bowl. That brought about, like, I had to mute it eventually because I was getting so much hatred from LA Rams fans.
Just this recently? I mean,
yeah. Totally.
What was that? I missed that.
It was just it was actually making fun of people in LA, which like, it was just a random throwaway joke. I used to live in LA. I a lot of friends there, but people were super, super angry. And it's fascinating to me how much we are holding so dear to our hurts and how much we are protecting that is pretty meaningless, right? Like
yes.
It's not as though someone's attacking your kids or
right.
they're making a throwaway joke about a thing that you happen to choose to watch for a period of time, but there's such an intense response, and it's like, I wonder if it's not just something that we're using because we have this anger and frustration at these other things in our lives, and we're just looking for an outlet to get really mad and really offended because we don't have any really good outlets for it right now. And so, someone saying the TV show that you like is goofy is like, I'm gonna go to war over that. It's just interesting. I don't know. We're all very frustrated. We're all very angry. Well, yeah, we're all very sad.
I know, but this is kind of like, I am irked about this, and I'm glad that you brought it to my attention. I didn't know about that tweet. This is a tweet making fun of people who like a thing, Ted Lasso, a TV show, written by a stand-up comedian who probably thought about it for either a little while or a longer while, whatever. And it's funny.
2 seconds, yeah.
Well, whether or not, whatever, it's funny. That's what comedians should be doing. And in many ways, that's what Twitter, is at its best. And you just look at it and go, that's a funny joke. It's a funny joke. To argue it, like, to take apart any part of it. I have kids and I don't like Disney and I do like Ted Lasso. Like, you're crazy. What are you doing? It's not about
Good
you.
For you. Right. That's right. It's not about you. And it's very, very easy as well to, as someone who has kids and enjoys Ted Lasso, it was like very easy to read and be like, and like keep it. It wasn't about me. I didn't internalize it, but people do. They internalize it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I really like that show a lot for a lot of reasons. I think for the same reasons, like a lot of people, maybe they're sensitive about it. Maybe that show made them feel like they were a better person. I don't know.
That's the really funniest part, right? Like, this is a show that prizes sort of kindness and humanity, and all of its fans are just fucking brutal and hateful.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, the part that is really entertaining to me.
And the idea that she says in the joke, I never watched the thing that I'm going to shit on or criticize or make fun of, that really bothered people so much. But it's also, as a comedian, it's a great joke. It's even funnier. It's like, I don't know what the show's about, but I can tell you all the people who watch it seem like this.
Right.
That's funny.
Right.
That's a funny observation. And it's not about like something important or serious. It's about a TV show that people like.
And we've made, like, I think most people have made that joke about a lot of different categories of things, right? Like,
I do
I've
it
never
about people
engaged
from
this,
Ohio.
but what I can tell from people who play hacky sack is like, whatever, like we've done it. We all do it. It's just hacky like sack. And I think that's the other thing why it stood out, right? Because like, it's this format of joke has been made about everything, not just by comedians, but by like your friends, by people in passing. And so for this particular instance to generate this level of fury was really fascinating to watch.
Is this the one you got in trouble for? The LA Rams are the quintessential LA? Yeah. The LA Rams are the quintessential LA team. They came from the middle of the country. It's weird when they say they're from LA and everyone they know is annoyed to see them succeed. Is an amazing tweet, joke, and observation about LA. And it like takes a while to pack its bags because you have to know that they were in St. Louis for 20 years. They moved to LA. And it's weird to say that you're from there because you weren't. And of course, everybody doesn't want you to see you succeed in entertainment and in Hollywood more there than anywhere else. It's fucking great. People were upset with that, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it also went really big. Lots of people loved that tweet, but I got so much hatred from it. Eventually,
like,
I just had
what was the most kind of collective hate?
Well, mostly people wanted to tell me that I knew nothing about football because the LA Rams were in LA before they were in St. Louis, which I knew. They also did not start in LA, which those people didn't seem to know. They started in Ohio, but whatever. I got it was very, that one drew out a lot of misogyny, mostly. A lot of like, stupid fucking cunt.
I said, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Right.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I thought it was something serious. No, I guess I'm very sensitive. My team won and I'm elated. and you're saying anything negative about my team that won.
Well,
but
that was another one that was really funny because I tweeted that right after they won. And it was just like, you just won, dude. Like, scroll past. It's okay. Be happy. Like,
you shouldn't have tweeted it right then.
No? When should I have done it? When would
of course
you should have.
You should have tweeted that. If I ever had a joke that funny, I'd have tweeted it in the past. I'd have gone back in time to tweet it at the right exact time. No, I mean, the other thing about it is you can't be that excited about the LA Rams winning. It's not like they're brand new there. It's like, who even knew? How did they even?
That's right. That was my joke, right? Like they just moved into town. Like they don't have a long fandom, but plenty of people wanted me to know they did, but they wanted to let me know that they did in a very angry way, which is fine. I'm so used to it, but it is still funny to me what people get really upset about. When people are in my mentions screaming at me about politics, I'm like, I get it more. I understand it more. It feels more like that you think this is truly vital and important and societally, like, even if I think you're an absolute nutso, like, I understand the heart motivating it. Whereas this stuff, it's just like, oh, you just had a shit day, huh? You just really wanted to fucking go to town on someone. Like, all right, okay, go ahead. Fine. I'm just going to mute you. Thank you, Twitter. I'm glad I have that option.
That's so funny and tragic and disappointing.
But the other thing, okay, wait. No, I have a question for you, Pete. Because this is what I was trying to think of, too. What's the dumb thing that you would lose it about? Like, what's the dumb thing? Do you have one? Because I don't think I do.
Well, I don't think I would ever seriously. I'm for a funny joke. So, like, if it were. The worst thing you could do is say something specifically about me, a weakness that I have. But I'm a comedian. Yeah, like, if it's funny.
Are you a fan? Like, are there any musicians?
No, I
think
you
just be like, no, off limits. Can't do it.
No, I don't have enough invested in anybody or anything. Like, if you want
either. That's why all my relationships fail.
Like, if you want to, if you want to like berate my favorite band, that's fine. I would immediately feel like maybe my taste is bad. I would turn inward, probably like, oh, they're probably right. Probably does suck. I didn't realize that.
One of the responses I saw in the Ted Lasso tweet, which really made me laugh, was if you said this tweet to Ted Lasso, he would laugh at it.
Yeah, for
and,
sure.
Like, be self-deprecating about it. And like,
or Jason Sudeikis or anybody involved with that show would laugh at that because it's a great show. I think if you were critical of the show Reacher on Amazon Prime, I'd probably get personally upset.
I just had to watch a bunch of that. It was just playing while a friend was here. And I saw mostly I saw a lot of blood and like a really big guy.
He's awesome. And I'm into him a lot.
Yeah, that's really fascinating to me too, because a lot of cis straight men seem to be really into this like massive dude just beating the shit out of stuff. Okay, that's another question I have.
Yeah,
I like
guys headbutting people. It makes me feel like I could do that with my big forehead.
Is that what it is? So like, because I don't love watching violence. I don't enjoy watching violence at all. But like, obviously, lots of people do. It's a massive industry.
Yeah, I like watching it. I hate that it exists, and I've never really been violent. I don't think with anybody outside, as you know, of my kids, but they get out of line. And sometimes you gotta put their hand on a hot stove, but they learn. But other than that, but I don't know why I'm entertained by it. I'm entertained by it. I like well choreographed fights. I don't know. I even like real life fights.
A wish fulfillment element? Do you watch it and just be like, "That's right. Yeah, I wish I could beat the crap out of people who deserve it"? Is it that feeling?
I do that.
That's interesting.
Yep. And
that's interesting.
I hope I never ever get in a fight, but it's like a way to channel your kind of. I think that's a maybe like a masculine hang up I probably do have.
Like the violence porn.
Yeah, like that typical kind of like enjoying watching somebody get their ass kicked or kicking ass.
Maybe that's why I don't enjoy it, because I just walk through the world thinking, I could obviously beat you up. Like, I don't need to watch it. I'm just like, yeah, of course. Like, no, I could just I could kick anyone, not a problem.
I think it's because they probably can't, I mean, when I see
I walk through the world with just an absolutely unearned amount of physical confidence all the time.
Would you ever headbutt somebody? Ever?
I would never do it. I've never been in any sort of physical altercation. I can't imagine I would be. which is not to say I never would. There's always like something that would propel a person forward. But I do tend to walk through the world feeling like, yeah, I can hold my own. Like I don't walk through the world with a lot of fear.
Do you think that's because you're 5'10", 5'11", something like that?
I do think that being tall is certainly a part of it. I also think that like my dad had that air about him all the time. And I think I just like,
oh, that makes sense.
Kind of picked it up a little bit.
Oh, that's interesting, Maura. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the other story I wanted to ask you about that I thought was...
The giant fat bear? Was it the giant fat bear? Because I'm obsessed with the giant fat bear.
No, it was that, and it was also Jesus and guns, which you seem pretty obsessed with. And then one of the things I know I like you, I think that the things that you get kind of interested in and obsessed with, I'm right there with you. I'm like, oh, yeah, more tweets about that, please. But yeah, what was the bear thing? You think that a bear died?
Love the bear. No, he didn't die. No, there's a 500-pound bear in California that is just like terrorizing this town because he's just breaking into people's houses. And like they're using paint guns, they're using sirens, they're playing music and strobe lights and things, and nothing is keeping this bear out. He should be max like 300 pounds, but he's only breaking into their houses to like eat their leftover pizza. And he's like not growling or being violent towards anyone. He just like busts into people's house and he's just like, I smelled pepperoni, so now I'm going to eat the rest of this pizza. Have a nice day. And that's like my ideal way. That's what I want to do for my life. That's what I want to grow up to be.
The bear is inspiring you.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do they know it's the same bear?
I think because there's not a lot of 500-pound bears busting into people's houses. Like, I don't think it's a common thing. I love him. He's wonderful. But they want to like euthanize. They want to trap him and put him down because... No. Right, exactly. Because he's not afraid of humans. So he's lost any fear of humans, which makes him dangerous to humans, which I understand. But I want him to come live with me. We'll hang out. He can go bring me some pizza. It'll be great.
Do you want to go into people's houses and take their food?
So there was like a line in the article that was just like busting it on people's houses and taking pizza.
A black bear known as Hank the Tank, I found it, has broken into more than 24 California homes since July, officials say. Paintballs, beanbags, sirens, and tasers cannot keep the 500-pound animal from seeking leftover pizza and other food. It's a weird sentence. Leftover pizza and other food, like he's looking for bear. Hank the Tank.
Hank the Tank. And there was a line in the article saying like it's easier for him to just bust into people's houses and take their pizza rather than go forage in the forest for berries. And like from that level, yeah, if my neighbors have pizza, it's easier for me to just bust in, grab some pizza. Like every single night, I'm just like, I could cook something, I guess. I could go to the grocery store. I don't really have enough. But like that seems exhausting. The idea that I could just bust in someone's house nearby and just be like, thanks. Like, yeah. Absolutely, I'd take that route.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that, too. I don't really love making food or thinking about it, even.
It's a pain in the ass. Yeah, like, Hank has figured it out.
Did you ever work at a restaurant?
Uh-huh, yeah, I was a waitress for years.
Did you ever eat people's food after you took their food away?
I want people to like me still on this podcast. I feel like I shouldn't answer.
You ate it right up, didn't you? Yum, yum.
I mean, There's been a moment or two.
I don't think
I was a teenager, and
No, I don't think that's weird. I think most waitresses probably, and people who work in restaurants probably do eat the food. I don't know why you wouldn't.
Not any food, but sometimes people will just get something and they won't touch it, and you can see that it's just.
Yeah, I just want to say I've got no problem with eating a stranger's food. I don't care that they bit into it is somehow supposed to make me not want to eat it? No, I'm fine with it. I don't care. What's the difference? What's the difference between a stranger and my friend who's giving me a bite of his whatever? Like, I don't know him. What could he have?
COVID, I guess. I think that's how it started, actually. I think that's where it came from. Have we explored that theory?
It was a waiter in some Chinese province that ate somebody's leftover food.
Just doing what normal people do, but it was just the wrong moment for it. I think that's probably what happened.
I feel bad for animals that they have to put down because they're not afraid of us anymore.
It's not great. No, that's not a fun thing that we do as humans.
I also
fear us or die is not necessarily the best.
I feel like
tagline.
it's a weird thing for a person who eats animals on a regular basis to say, I feel bad for animals because blank.
Okay. Also
Meanwhile,
fair.
I'm eating them all up.
I feel bad for them except when they're delicious.
Well, I never. People are gonna be upset with this. I don't feel that bad for chickens because I think they're so ugly, and I
They
know
also seem really dumb. I don't know if they are, but they seem dumb.
Yeah, and they're dumb.
Like,
and
they don't. It doesn't feel like they necessarily like formed attachments or things, or like the stuff that we kind of humanize onto animals.
Yeah, I don't think that they see other chickens and recognize them at all, even if they're related directly.
No, they're not hanging out being like, let's talk about how to get out of being a nugget. Like, let's strategize here.
They're not doing anything but just looking around. That's it. Just waiting for me to eat them.
Wow, this has become a chicken-hating podcast.
I'm so sorry, everybody.
This is really cruel. Really cruel.
Anything else that we can cheer people up with, talk about, or commiserate on?
To dipping sauces. I mean, people might be upset about the chickens, but they love dipping sauces.
That's a good point too. But you can get a veggie, nugget to dip in the same dipping sauce.
That's true.
I guess that's it. What else did I want to ask you? I don't know.
The obese bear. That's the biggest thing for me.
No, I was going to ask you about your sex pizza tweet that you recycled, which I think is one of your greatest. But hold on, where is it? A very, very funny tweet, which I enjoy a lot. Bad pizza, bad sex.
Yeah, bad pizza is like bad sex. Pizza.
Sex is like pizza. Anyone who says even when it's bad, it's still good is someone I never want to have it with.
All I'm saying is just, have a little discernment. That's all.
I feel
just recognize.
But if you do it like any reference to sex that could be that you could be talking about yourself, I always feel like that's something that may have just happened. And I always feel like I feel bad for that person because God forbid oh my God, what if a person knows that you're talking about them with that tweet? That's got to be rough.
No dudes or chicks or chickens were harmed in the making of that tweet.
All right, if you say so.
I promise.
You also said something about at a point in my life where people I've had sex with are dying, or what was that? Was hilarious. And
I was talking about how age shouldn't be measured in years; it should be measured in life events, like. Once you've started getting annoyed at your seasonal change in your electric bill, or once someone you've had sex with has died.
There it is. Well done. That's really funny. All right. One more of your tweets. And then I promise I'll let you go. But this is a reaction to this woman who is running for governor. Where is she? What's Georgia? Her name is Candace Taylor. And she has a tour bus. I shouldn't say her name. Anyway, well, she spells it Candiss. Candace.
I have a feeling she likes K's, yeah.
And on the side of the bus, it says, "I'm the one you've been waiting for. Jesus, guns, babies."
I just think that's a terrible thing to say about the Lord and Savior. Does Jesus gun babies?
No. I didn't read it that way. I read it as those are the things that are for sale because they're bullet pointed, almost like nachos, chicken fingers, French fries, like outside of a snack shack. It says
having a little sale.
Jesus, guns, babies. New campaign bus in Georgia. Jesus, guns, and babies. Wow. I mean, when you think about what happened in Canada and you think about the right in general, you were tweeting about, I think, trying to argue with right-wing politics or policies is just, you can't be done. Yeah. But it's because they kind of conflate. I suppose you could say this about other political ideologies, but it seems like the American right-wing movement, and now bleeding into Canada and elsewhere, is just kind of these issues that don't really have more than a word. Guns, babies, Jesus. What else do I need to tell you?
Pro or anti any of these things? I don't really know. I mean, they claim to be pro Jesus, but it's kind of like if you say that you really hate a TV show you've never watched. It's like they obviously have never had any experience with it, but they have a lot of feelings towards that one.
Yeah.
And the babies, it's just like, I'm not sure what the babies is doing in there, because every policy they want to enact is just so full of hating babies so much. Just like, we're not going to give your mom time off, or your dad for that matter. We're not going to make sure that you have food or a place to live or diaper. Like, they just fucking hate babies.
Oh, reading?
Man.
No,
yeah.
You're not going to be learning that until you're well out of baby land.
Yeah. The only thing that I know that they like is guns, but like, that's it. That's the one thing. Like, yeah, okay. They do seem to really love a gun.
They don't like baby. They don't want to do anything for babies at all. And they want them to have guns.
They want the babies to have guns, I guess, to shoot the other babies because they hate the babies so much. I mean, that makes sense. If you really hate babies, arm babies, they'll most likely shoot other babies.
A baby shot a baby today in Ohio. And
probably, yeah.
Probably a headline. What about Jesus, though?
I don't know what Jesus is doing there. I don't know. I think it's just an exclamation. I think it's just a word they use sometimes, like, gosh, like, it's just like, I'm not sure what that means, but we just say it.
Because if Jesus is your savior, it means you are a Christian, which means you behave what?
I mean, hey, look, I'm a terrible Jew. What do I know? I certainly, I thought I understood. I studied Christianity.
Well, it's
a bit,
just that
it seems I've got it wrong.
I hate to be one of those hacky, like, well, they're probably the same people who are, putting Jesus on the side of the bus are the ones that aren't practicing any of his good works. They're not getting vaccinated. They're drinking liberal tears. They're not good people. They're reprehensible basket of deplorable people. And yet they somehow say that they're following this prophet who did. I
feel really bad for, and I know for Christians who really do try to live by a sort of Christian morality of love and grace and kindness and love my neighbor. And like, sure. I do know some people.
I do too. I interviewed them. Yeah.
And I do feel terrible for them because they have this just much louder segment of individuals just absolutely slandering their name by the way that they live. So that's got to be rough.
Let me just get in this live read here at the end. Jesus, babies, and guns. Vote for Candace, folks. She's going to have them do stuff.
She's going to arm the babies.
I don't know. Arm the babies. Vote for Candace.
There you go.
All right, Maura, thank you very much. Interesting, enlightening, hilarious, and always a pleasure. I was sad that we didn't get to talk to you yesterday, but I'm glad we got you in today. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there she goes. Maura Quint, everybody. Isn't she always awesome? Check her out online, Americans for Tax Fairness, taxmarch.org. She's a co-founder, by the way, of that organization. Most importantly, she's awesome on Twitter. Go find her and say that you heard her here at Behind Your Back, a rare Tuesday appearance. Usually joins me on Monday. All right, now I'm excited to talk to my friend Jeff Jarvis, who I first heard on the Howard Stern Show, where Howard loved and would have him on all the time. He's the author of What Would Google Do? And Public Parts, How Sharing in the Digital Age Improves the Way We Work and Live. He blogs at buzzmachine.com, and most importantly, he directs the Toe Night Center for Entrepreneurial Journalism at the City University of New York's Graduate School of Journalism. And you can hear and see him every week on This Week in Google. Love talking with Jeff Jarvis on Twitter, at Jeff Jarvis. Always great. We covered a lot of ground, as we always do, and had a lot of fun, as we always do. Let him know you heard him here, please, on the show, at Jeff Jarvis. Let's do it. Oh, and he's got a brand new jingle by Phil Round out in Wyoming, which is more of like a song than a jingle, but we loved it. So here it is in all of its beauty and glory, debuting for the first time from Phil Round.
We need more Jeff Jarvis. Get him back on, don't starve us. The things he says are just marvelous. Yeah, we need more Jeff Jarvis. He calls out obvious fascism. You people ought to just invest all your cash with him. Yeah, check out his buzz machine. heights can be mean. It's just a thing that he's seen. From both of our coasts to Davos, big money media don't pay for his blog posts. No, we need some Jeff Jarvis. Don't you starve us. We need to get some. And here comes some Jeff Jarvis.
Wow. Phil Round, everybody.
Phil Round. Thank you, Mr. Round. I am not worthy. I am grateful. That's amazing. I have a jingle. I have a whole album.
I mean, that was like a ballad, or not a ballad. Yeah. Very long, thoughtful song, had many levels. Phil's very talented, but what jumped out at you? What do you think? What resonated most with Phil?
Jarvis and Marvelous. What can I, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Like Don't Starve Us. We need our Jeff Jarvis. Well, here we go, folks. Let's take a big bite. I'm very happy to see you. I'm always happy when I get to talk to you.
Always happy to be called. It's a happy day when Pete says, "You doing anything?"
Yes. And
the answer is always no. So here I am.
You're a very busy man, a very important man, and it's a great credit to our show that we get to talk to you and ask you lots of questions. There's one thing I originally reached out to you. I want to get that out of the way, and then there's a whole bunch of other things I want to ask you about. But we're watching media cover the war, and you're a media man. You know all the ins and outs of it, and you know what in the past. You know, what's important for a viewer? What's in the public's interest as we watch what could be, the precipice that seemed imminent for weeks now? And what are they getting wrong?
Well, that's the problem. I think that they presume it's imminent. Did they learn nothing in the Trump years? Trump was trained by Putin. Putin knows how to lie, and they're taking what he says on face value. And they're salivating for war. They just can't wait to be there. And that's the problem. They're playing along rather than treating it, I think, as dubiously as it should be treated. And one thing that is good, at least they're saying, well, Biden's pretty clever this time. But he is, right? Biden's pulling the rug out from Putin at every opportunity. Biden's saying, oh, you're going to do that? Okay, what else are you going to do? I already know you're going to do that. So that takes away that surprise. And I think that strategy is working, and they should be looking at the larger picture. But instead, it's war is imminent. It's going to happen any day. Says it's going to happen Wednesday. Says it's going to happen Thursday. The other problem I have, my friend, is that the networks are so desperate for video, they are running Russian military propaganda video as B-roll. It is so wrong. They're doing the bidding of the Russians, making the Russians look all tough and muscular and military and all that. It's propaganda. Stop. Video is not, I know it's TV, but heresy, video is not that important. Stop.
So is video not that important, or is it the actual video they're playing and the way they're playing it? Meaning B-roll, meaning it's just stock footage of Russian military troops, as opposed to what would be in the public's interest, which would be actual footage of what happened today on the ground. Right. Reported in an objective way, not given by a file from the Kremlin, I suppose. I'm not sure that's what they're doing. But.
Exactly. If you want scenes, I mean, it doesn't work on TV, but if you want scenes of what's actually happening, follow Bellingcat, which is the investigative journalism outfit that has people do amazing work, seeing a bit of video from somebody's car, tying it to geographic images and showing you exactly what really is happening. I saw one the other day, guy driving past a border near in Russia, near Ukraine, and here's a whole bunch of launchers for something lined up, and Bellingcat is telling you exactly what's happened. That's real video. That's reported video. That's from the people. That's interesting. But the problem is it doesn't look like, oh, here come the whooshing jets. And I think people have, you asked what they should look for. I think they should look for something that I feel ashamed at not being more negative about was the Iraq War, both of them.
Yeah.
Because it was a shock and awe and all kinds of, it was great video, right? You saw things exploding in the sky. It was made for TV. And I don't want to see that happen again. Right now, they're encouraging the Russians, I think, not that this is the reason they're going to do it, but I think that they're getting what they want, which is we look tough and we're going to break up Europe and we're going to destabilize the world and we're going to hurt your stock market and we're going to hurt your gas prices. And thank you very much for playing along with my game.
Yeah, Bellingcat.com is, I had no idea about the source. Another great reason to talk to, at Bellingcat. And it's interesting because with the new technology, you have publicly available satellite imagery. You know, you can think back to the pictures, the photos of the missiles in Cuba taken by a camera in the underbelly of a fighter jet that got strafed with anti-aircraft fire, and they got some grainy photos. Then, of course, there were satellites that, you know, some countries' governments had that could obviously spy on troop movements. But now you can get anything from a commercial drone to, there's just so much apparently commercial satellite imagery, so you can see in real time where troops are, and that makes things more transparent.
It's phenomenal. Bellingcat did a great job on identifying the Russian specific devices that shot down MH17. And they did that by getting video from people's car dash cameras, because Russians love dash cameras because they evidently get into horrible accidents all the time. So you want to record your death. And
well, they got into, I'm going to be kind of culturally insensitive, but there's like a lot of insurance fraud there. Is that right?
I guess so. I don't know what it is, but they all have dash cams evidently.
My dad got hit by a skier at the mountain, and when he found out he was Russian, my dad's like, "I think you did that on purpose." I'm like, "I don't think so, Pop." But he jumped to conclusions. Anyway, you got all these dash cams, you're saying?
Yeah. So there's video out there now of military vehicles going through villages, and then Bellingcat comes along and they use their thousands of volunteers to track that against Google Earth and other images. And, this fence looks exactly like that. We know where this is. We can see that sign. This is exactly 20 kilometers from the border. That's what they do. It's amazing.
Really,
that's real reporting.
Yeah, really important reporting. Anything else? The only other thing I just always want to mention is that, you know, I see Barry McCaffrey getting attacked by some right-wing loser about something, but then I've always, you know, been critical of Barry McCaffrey and others because they literally profit off of wars. I always hate, what I'm trying to say is, these ex-military types who might have their hands still in the pot with some defense company that they also consult for, and it's like they're sitting there beating the war drums so that they can get paid. I'm not saying that's why they do it. They probably wouldn't admit to that, of course, but that's what it looks like, and that bothers me.
Yeah, but in a fight, in a lunchroom brawl of the devil and J.D. Vance, I'm on the devil's side. Right? I mean, it's just, so Barry McCaffrey now looks good by comparison.
Ugh, that's who that was. J.D. Vance called him out.
It was J.D. Vance.
Oh, thank you for telling me that. Oh, it was brutal.
J.D. Vance, who was nothing but a flack when he was in the service, and he's making fun of McCaffrey. He nearly got his arm shot off. So all the military people are coming on. One more tip. You asked for tips. Book Julia Ioffe more.
Yeah. Why do you like? I know Julia really well. Why do you like her?
I just think that she has the experience. She understands what's happening in Russia. She's Russian, and she's got attitude. And the only way to cover Putin is with attitude.
Yeah, I think it's so important that you covered. A lot of journalists have unfortunately had the opportunity to cover him for a long time because he's been there for so long. But you have to understand Russian culture to be able to report on it, because it's not. As I heard Secretary Blinken saying on Face the Nation, like, you can't get inside this guy's head. They don't think like we think. They're different interests, and in his case,
right, which is what's wrong about every media outlet thinking they can get inside his head. You know, only a year ago there were all these epidemiologists out there, and now they're all Kremlinologists, and they know exactly what's happening in Putin's head. He's nutso.
That's right. That's well said. Very well said. What else?
And smarter than Trump, and thus more dangerous. So. I'm disappointed in journalism as a whole, salivating for war right now. And then I was thinking about it today, Pete, and let me ask you this first. If I asked you 3-4 years ago, or no, let me make it 5 years ago, pre-Trump, what would you have said your top 3 favorite newspapers in the world were?
The New York Times, the Washington Post, and either the LA Times or the Chicago Tribune. But I also read I like the Guardian a lot.
Yep. Yeah, I would have said New York Times, Washington Post, Guardian.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed in them these days.
Oh.
And this depresses me, obviously, since I teach journalism.
Yeah.
And I've respected them for all these years. And so I said that on Twitter today. I didn't say which ones. I just said my favorite 3 papers are disappointing me. And somebody I respect from European journalism came by and said, well, what's going on? And so I thought about it more. And Jay Rosen from New York University. Have you ever had Jay on?
Yeah, I love Jay.
Yeah,
I haven't met him on the podcast. I really should.
Oh, you should. You should. So Jay, he's thoughtful, unlike me. Jay wrote a post, I think in 2018, looking at the impact of the New York Times now dependent entirely on reader income.
Yeah.
And I think the way I put it, he didn't put it this way, but I'll mess up his message, is that they end up in a dialectic or a paradox where they want to pander to their readers in one breath, and then in the next breath, they want to provoke their readers to prove their independence from them. Well, we're going to piss you off by doing both sides reporting, because that's what we do. We're going to piss you off by going and humanizing some Nazis today. We're going to piss you off by constantly showing how we can be negative and nasty to Biden in ways we weren't to Trump. And so I don't know. Do you sense any change in them in the last few years?
Or is it just my imagination? I don't have a good enough of a perspective, but I do. And I was really disappointed by obviously how they covered the Hillary thing with the email thing and how they covered Trump in some ways. But it's easy to be disappointed. It's as for me, it's easier to be impressed. And there's so many great journalists around the world that report for the Times and the other newspapers. And so I always am. It's hard. It's hard to have a full context of what you're saying. But I also wonder, the question I have for you is, where does that come from? Is it the editor? Is it the direction of the team, the editorial page team? Like, how do these things come up? Is it one person? Is it a bunch of people? Is it money?
It's a right and good question. Obviously, whoever's on top has pretty tremendous influence.
Right.
That happens. But it's also the organizational structure of the place.
Marty Barron seemed to be pretty good. I
think Marty Barron was very good. I mean, I didn't agree with everything Marty did. Marty was still held to the flag of objectivity. Mm-hmm. Wesley Lowery disagreed with him and left. But I think Marty was an excellent editor who really moved the Post up to be direct competition with the Times. Now, Sally Busby, who's the editor of the Post, is from the Associated Press. And I think we kind of hear that Associated Press mealy-mouthed both sides voice there. The Times, Baquet's, Lord knows he's extremely smart and a proven Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. Reporter.
Dean Baquet, is that his name?
The editor of the New York Times, executive editor of the New York Times. But he just did an interview in the New Yorker where he said he had no regrets about their coverage of Hillary Clinton's email. How can you not have no regrets? How can you not seek lessons from that when it probably won Trump the election? I would be impossible to know, right? It's proving a negative, but how can one not have self-reflection about that? Then he went on, as the Times people do now, loving to smash Twitter and say that it's basically his job to tell his staff to ignore Twitter. And then a columnist in The Guardian today, Hadley Freeman, who's controversial these days because she's defending J.K. Rowling on matters of gender. She's also going on about how Twitter is awful. Well, Twitter is 330 million individuals talking. And when you turn your back on that, you turn your back on all those people who have individual perspectives and lived experience and voices, and some of whom are idiots. Yes. Some of whom are smart, most of whom aren't represented in mainstream mass media. So I'm depressed.
I understand that, and I hear that from a lot of people, and I think it depends on who it's coming from. But to hear it from you is, you have so much experience and credibility as an editor yourself, and you just have the length of time that you've watched these newspapers in every way. So it's of great value to me, and certainly
don't overdo me. I wasn't there winning Pulitzer Prize with prizes covering wars. I started Entertainment Weekly.
You have a
fluff monster.
You have a better perspective than me and probably most people listening on such things, and that's why it's of great value. So I want to also
let me just say a moment here. Entertainment Weekly, my baby.
Yeah,
may it rest in peace.
When did it die?
The print version is dying, I think, this month. Time Inc. was bought by Meredith. Meredith was bought by Barry Diller's Dash. Now all these journalists there are on a factory assembly line of content, and they killed 6 print magazines, including EW and InStyle.
Wow. Recently?
Yeah, it just came out about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, I did not hear that. How does that make you feel? What with the fact that you came up with that? You were behind that.
I long ago, I wasn't subscribing, to be honest with you. The whole point of the magazine was to be a magazine of criticism. Oh, by the way, I happen to have it. I was talking to somebody tonight about it, so I dragged this out. Here was the original prototype of Entertainment Weekly.
Oh, cool.
It was meant to be a magazine of criticism or reviews. Now that's an afterthought in the magazine. It's more celebrity features. The world doesn't need that. We have Rotten Tomatoes. It doesn't need to live anymore. It's sad, but that's just reality.
Well, that's a mature perspective on it, I guess. I mean, media.
Bitter. I walked out in a huff from the place. So
you did? Have you told that story?
No, in fact, I'm going to. I think I'm getting, knock wood, a contract to write a little short thing about magazines, and in there, I plan to tell the story of leaving EW.
Oh, wow! I can't wait to hear that. Wow, that's interesting. All right, well, let me ask you about the most important new app in all the app stores. It's Trump's new social media app. I don't even want to say what its name is.
No, that's good. I'm glad. Don't.
Crap.
Don't.
It's called the Crap App, and it's up in the app stores now. You know, you got your Apple.
Is it an Android too? I don't.
Google Play Store soon. The website.
I see.
Crap App website says it will be in the Google Play Store soon. But I know nothing. But it would seem like an app like this would require a smart staff of dedicated 24/7
people. Not Devin Nunes.
Well, he's running the company, right?
Yeah.
What does he know? He's a farmer by trade, then a congressman. What could he possibly know about? Anyway,
he's angry when people make fun of him about cows and tries to sue them and do things. Yeah, he's an idiot when it comes to social media.
He's a pathetic loser. But that doesn't. I mean, I don't know.
Well, somebody said on Twitter today, it might have been Cory Doctorow, I forget, said this is nothing but a mechanism to farm email addresses.
Okay, yeah.
Did any dastardly soul, Pete, sign you up for Trump emails? Do you get Trump emails?
Yes, I did. I mean, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to give anybody. Yes, I get them all. I love them.
Right.
Please keep sending them to me, you guys.
2,000% bonus on. Donald is disappointed. You haven't done this, right?
Do you know how many? I get a lot more than that. I get subscriptions to terrible, horrible porn that I never asked for.
Oh, no.
I know who they're coming from. Thanks, folks. So go ahead.
So I just think, what is Trump? Trump is a grifter. He's nothing but grifting. He's trying to get money. And so there's a conversion rate from idiots who sign up for this app who will end up giving him money for no good reason.
Right.
I think that's what this is.
And it's also a good reminder that he also launched a blog that shuttered after 29 days. And people hear about the things launching like everything he's ever done. They don't as much hear about them dying, but it does create a certain persona. But he just desperately needs a platform. And obviously, if you were able to create a social media platform that was successful, you'd be a billionaire. But who's working for him? Who would work on this? There can't be quality. I don't know.
It can't be. It's ridiculous. And it's built, I think it's built on Discord. So it's just an open source platform, which you use too. And so anybody can do it. So, you could, hell, Pete Dominic can make his own social network. And you've done it. So I guess he's just following your lead in a way.
Yeah, I was an early adapter to Discord, and that's when Trump and others followed. Speaking of people who follow Trump, I do have to ask you about, do you want to predict when this crap app dies, Jeff? How long? Or like crashes, or like everybody's immediately going to try hacking it, or they have hacked it. Somebody got the at real Donald Trump handle, which was his handle at Twitter. It's going to get corrupted. There can't be good security on it.
No, of course not. But the problem is you're doing the right thing. Don't give it attention.
Yeah.
Because we end up back in that case where what's going to happen? Is the New York Times going to start writing the stories about what he said on the crap app?
Yeah, exactly. It's the Trump pump. It's a way to pump in email addresses and convert them into dollars. It's really hard. They, opting out is not bolded.
Plus, it's the entire family. I don't think I've ever gotten one from Ivanka. I'm hurt back there.
That's interesting. Phil Mickelson is also teaming up with Trump. Is it this or what is he doing?
Yeah. So, and I don't follow golf. It's almost as boring as baseball, which will get me in trouble with people. But
wow,
I'm not a sports guy.
Wow.
My father wanted me to play golf so we could bond, and we didn't, and so that's that. But
can we unpack that for an hour?
I know. Well, last time I tried to play golf, I ended up hitting him in the shin. And I love my father. He's 96 years old now, and I lived right by him, but he watches golf all day. I find golf really boring.
Yeah, tough to watch, for sure.
It really is, yeah. So anyway, Phil Mickelson, who my father likes, who people like, it tries to be controversial in a passive-aggressive way. And he is backing, along with Trump, reportedly an effort to start a competitor to the PGA, Professional Golf Association, for an alternative league backed by the Saudis that would play 5 miles away from my house, right over there at Trump's New Jersey cave. The Saudi journalist murderers and Trump, the democracy ruiner, and Phil Mickelson, the greedy golfer, more grifting, more just depressing crap,
It's really weird. I mean, he's done this so many times, and he's never even come close to succeeding in terms of competing, creating a competitive. Remember, he tried to create and invest in a competitive football league, and now, how's he going to compete with the PGA? Who wants to be associated with that? I mean, it's just.
And the PGA Museum, by the way, I thought of this right now, is about 2 miles from Trump's golf course. They're right there. So it's just at
this point, people must be grifting off of him, knowing that whatever he does is going to fail and hopefully being smart enough to get paid up front. But they probably aren't.
Well, but they don't with him. But yeah, try to get your money in any way you can apart from him. And it's just, is there hope for democracy? Is there hope for golf?
I think there's probably a lot more hope for the latter. But
yeah, but it's still boring.
Do
you golf?
No, come on, sir.
I didn't think so.
I like the idea of being outside. It's the only idea about it. But then, even then, I feel guilty because I'm on this manicured, lawn. It's not natural. It's man-made. It's pumping water away from probably better place it needs to be.
Are you up to pickleball age yet? Or are you too young
pickleball.
For that?
I like. Are you playing?
You play pickleball?
Yeah.
No.
I have played. I should say I do not play.
It is the sport of retirees.
The great shout out to the listener Joe Liotta, who made me go out and play, and then I started holding my back after a little while. But I'm getting ripped. This is a big month for me. Doing a healthy month. Let me ask you about the two other things I wanted to ask you about that you mentioned, which are all really important. Well, first of all, I feel like thousands of people are still dying of COVID every day, and no one is covering it. It feels like nobody's covering it. It seems like nobody cares. People are being less careful in areas, increasingly. And I just want to get your perspective on, you think, the media's coverage and where we're at right now.
I'll whine about media coverage, but I'll also whine about politicians. California saying they're going to go to endemic. It's not up to them to decide. That's like Putin deciding to sign off a part of Ukraine and say, well, now it's the People's Republic of COVID. You don't decide this. The virus decides this. And it's depressing to see Ed Young in the Atlantic, who's one of the 2 or 3 best we have in covering the pandemic, wrote a piece in the Atlantic this last week reminding us about the vulnerable. And it's not just for, old fart. Fine, I'm an old fart with having had cancer and all that. I'm vulnerable too. But it's my 96-year-old father who got breakthrough COVID. It's people like that we've got to protect here. And to suddenly decree, we're tired of it, enough, it's less serious, so we get it. Long haul COVID is gonna haunt us for a generation or two.
Yeah,
we're gonna lose 1 million lives to this. People are still getting sick and still dying daily. It ain't over, and I'm enraged at both media and politicians for doing what they're doing. And they're doing it because of the pressure of the dumb wing of America, the anti-science, anti-intellectual, anti-knowledge wing of America. And those people are winning. there and a few surprisingly stupid people in Canada.
What did you make of how that was handled by the Canadians? I mean, what's the difference between Occupy Wall Street and a cause an environmental issue? If environmentalists put a whole bunch of tractor trailers on a bridge and blocked it off or whatever else, you know, what's a lot of people are trying to say, listen, I appreciate nonviolent protesting, but this is different. I mean, how did you see that?
Well, Occupy Wall Street didn't shut down Manhattan or even Wall Street, right?
You didn't lose hundreds of millions of dollars, probably more in commercial traffic trade, right?
That's the problem, is that they then had an impact on the people who matter most. They had an impact on their fellow truck drivers, as if they were really truck drivers. Most of them weren't. And they're just dorks and idiots, and they're fighting for something that's crazy. So if you're going to engage in civil disobedience, then you got to be willing to get arrested. You can do that. Absolutely, you can do that. But that's the price you pay. And they're not willing to pay the price.
Right. No, that's a good point. I mean, all the civil rights leaders who protested and now, you know, even anti-abortion people, everybody gets arrested at a certain point. You can't sit there all day. It's a great point. I'm glad I asked you that. Yes. At some point, you have to get out of the way of the door. People have to go through. Appreciate it. But now it's time to arrest you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, and you made your point, and if you were arrested, you were willing to put yourself on the line for that, but they weren't. They're a bunch of Canadian snowflakes.
Although I don't know about the law. Now I feel like somebody's going to tell me something about the Keystone Pipeline protests or all those Native American protests who did such great work, and some frivolous legal issue I'm missing. But regardless, that's a really important.
The question is it okay to judge protests differently on its IQ level? Right? Can we make a qualitative judgment? All protests are equal. Yes, all speech is free. All speech should be allowed.
Yeah.
Government shouldn't affect speech. Okay, yeah. I salute that flag. Right. Unlike Canada, I read something on Twitter. One of the protesters raised the First Amendment to a judge in Canada, and the judge said, "What's that?"
Yeah, we don't
have that up here.
You're not in Syracuse anymore.
Exactly.
Well, what about the birds aren't real guy? You know about that?
Oh, right.
I mean, no, the point is that he's making is any, IQ level protests. Like in this case, it's a conspiracy, but it's a good point you're making. If we're talking about civil rights, if we're talking about the environment, even if we're talking about abortion, but in these cases where it's like QAnon and they're anti-vaxxers, really? No.
Right.
Let's say.
And that's not the point. The point is to just be an angry white man.
Well, they were mad about everything. You saw Jordan Klepper of The Daily Show go up and get a pretty good perspective of it's, as always, a potpourri. It's the same thing as the Tea Party protests. It's just anti-government, anti-intellectual.
Right. And people who think that, and they're afraid of being replaced, to use their word, and they will be. The days of people who look like me, especially because I'm even whiter than you are, and you are over. And good.
But it's almost like you say it so simply. It's like they will be. Yeah, everybody will be. Everybody's going to be replaced by something. Yeah. And if your beef is that it's not going to be like you, well, then maybe you should talk to a therapist.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe your kids should marry somebody to surprise you, and that'd be a beautiful thing. And I saw today. I saw it happen on the TV. Passed by the TV's over that way.
Yeah.
And I saw. I didn't get to watch it. Maybe you saw it. That up to 20% of young people count themselves now as non-binary. I think the presumption in the past has been, I think, that about 10% were presumed to be LGBTQ. But now, that was in a society that tamped people down for their views of themselves, and so people's definitions of themselves in many, many ways are going to expand in a way that's going to scare the hell out of the old white farts.
Well, what is going to be a lot more difficult than anything gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, or religion is going to be when we're droids. We're partly droid, right? I mean, isn't that like you're going to be replaced by machines? It is. Whatever it is, certain things, I don't mean to sound like Thanos, but are inevitable. But if you really want to get worked up about something, I don't know. I think the problem is the way it has been is that you could pick your replacement.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing, too, about Elon Musk. In solidarity with the truckers, he, more than anyone on earth, is trying to replace them in their jobs.
Oh, wow. Why was he saying he's in solidarity with the truckers?
I don't know, because he wants to be a jerk.
Yeah, he's just
That's the point. Just to be a jerk. He's a brilliant jerk, but he's a jerk.
Yeah. Someone was like, I got all hung up because I really love the car, the Tesla. And someone's like, don't buy a Tesla. He's a racist. I'm like, oh, I'll buy a Ford then. Like, what is the major company automaker that is this socially responsible? Like, there isn't a socially responsible vehicle out there. And are you going to make your own? Like, that's the kind of thing. Like, I want to support union made vehicles. And then electric vehicles. And then it runs out. You don't have an electric vehicle now, do you? I do now. I've had one forever. Chevy Volt.
Oh, you have a Volt.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I got solar panels too.
Right. I forgot that.
Yeah. But the battery.
Is there any new one you lust after?
Yeah, I wanted. Yeah, but who's buying a new car right now? I want a Tesla. But
you do still?
I really like that car. Yeah, I want a fully electric car that goes over 300 miles. I look at them like every day. I look at these cars.
I think the Mustang looks nice, but here's two old guys talking about cars.
Yeah.
That's really boring.
Finally, then let's talk about something more important than cars, which is the cities of Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Los Angeles have made some pretty big pronouncements. I didn't know about this until I was talking to you.
Their newspapers have. Last year, the LA Times did a piece, which unfortunately they put behind a paywall, which is pretty stupid, apologizing for their racist past. The Baltimore Sun did it recently. And then over the weekend, the Philadelphia Inquirer, which I know from people in Philadelphia, has had a terrible relationship. Has done terrible damage to communities in Philadelphia. So pardon me, at long last now, you have some of the major newspapers in the country, and ones in the South did it much earlier, acknowledging their history, are starting to recognize it and apologize for it. There's by the way, there's an academic named Jordan Taylor who did some great work. If you Google, folks, Inquirer of the Printer by Jordan Taylor, he looked at the early American newspapers and all the ads they had for selling and finding enslaved peoples, and counted up them all and found, for example, that Benjamin Franklin was the first to take part in the slave trade from newspapers.
Wow!
And
do you know him? It might be an interesting.
He's great to talk to. He's great. Yeah.
Well, I found them all. So the LA Times editorial, an examination of the Times failures on race, our apology and a path forward. As you said, that is from September of 2020. Is that what we're talking about? Then the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Philadelphia. They had Wesley Lowery and Aaron Haynes, which was great to get two of the leaders in journalism right now about race to work on that. And which is all great. I'm delighted. But the real question we have to have, the real discussion we have to have, is about reparations. It's one thing to confess your sins, and that's fine. That's a step in the right direction, absolutely necessary. But the question is, how do we repair the damage we've done to communities?
Well, I mean,
all the communities we've ignored over the years.
I don't want to talk about reparations because I feel like I'm in the fight right now in my community. And like right now, the fight is for diversity, equity, and inclusion as an ideology in the school to some extent, much less actual programming and even, God forbid, staffing, right? Diverse staffing. And so like we're so far away from a conversation about reparations. We're right now like back in the 50s and 60s.
It's
and
reversion.
So while I agree that's the morally right thing to do, I mean, it's impossible really to disagree with it. In reality, the fight we're having at the Board of Education meetings is about why white people can't say the N-word, and that and white people are the group of people that is being discriminated against, and white people's kids are my kids. Apparently, they feel bad about being white, which, of course, as I always tell them, that's a parenting issue. If your kid feels bad about his or her whiteness, then you should have a chat with them.
Right.
Or find someone who can.
Yes.
Because no one's doing that to your white kids. So, yeah. But that's great about those 3 newspapers. I didn't know that, and I've looked them all up here, and I'll try to link to them in the show notes so people can read. I'm really interested in hearing and reading the Philly Inquirer one.
Yeah, it's a good step. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm glad for that. Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else? That was great. What a great, robust, thoughtful conversation about several different things.
Wow, that's fun.
All right, man. Well, I will talk to you soon. I really appreciate it. I always love talking to you. I always learn all kinds of new things and perspectives. Jeff Jarvis, everybody.
Love talking to you and your peeps.
All right, there he goes. Jeff Jarvis on Twitter at Jeff Jarvis, and the great Phil Round. Love that, Phil. We loved your song. Thank you very much, pal. So much fun. Check out philroundmusic.com, everybody. I'll put links to Phil's website in the show notes as well. We always love seeing him at our hangouts, and we love Phil's pictures from Jackson Hole for our Vitamin N. Thank you, by the way, for the Vitamin N pictures you've been sending them. Keep coming. I got like 5 yesterday, but I need a lot more. Take some nature pictures. Email them to me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. I include them in my daily email to all subscribers. It includes the show and more. All right, finally on today's show, one of those subscribers, longtime listener, caller, and really good close personal friend of mine. Super smart. Always love talking to Bill B in D.C. And how about this jingle from Gareth Sever? Every guest had a jingle. That's out today. That's how talented the audience of this show is. So many great creative musicians out there. And here's Gareth for Bill B in D.C., who, of course, does he need more of an introduction than that? We always love him. Here we go.
Bill B in D.C. Bill B in D.C. He's a D.C. insider's insider. He runs parking garages and you can park inside there. He's got an opinion on everything. Well, that's kind of his thing, but he backs it up with a mountain of knowledge. I would bet he even went to college. He does the research nobody else wants to do, and he presents it all to me and you. Bill B in D.C.
Oh, yeah. What a great jingle. He joins us now to talk about what is unfolding in Russia, Ukraine. What do the smart people call it for short? Is there not a...
Russia, Ukraine?
No. Moscow orders troops to separatist regions in Ukraine, reads the headline at the New York Times. Drudge report says Putin recognizes breakaway region, orders troops into Ukraine. Invasion already begun. The Washington Post has similar headlines like crisis in Ukraine. Putin orders troops into 2 separatist Ukraine regions. I've been reading about these regions. I've been trying to understand the history and the objectives. But what happened today, sir? What happened?
Well, Putin gave this completely insane speech on Russian television. And, it's the kind of thing that like Stalin used to do, except, Putin can make it like a good Netflix thriller. And in the speech, he basically said that they were recognizing the quote unquote independent republics of Lugansk and Donetsk. And that then later on, he did like the ceremony recognizing them with, a couple of fucking schlubs they brought up, basically gangsters from the region to sign off. And then tonight, they are already sending Russian troops into, quote unquote, defend them. And what that really means is that the Russians are putting troops in that are going to start fighting the Ukrainian army, because they're called oblasts. That's the regional, boundaries.
Yeah, O-B-L-A-S-T, oblasts.
Yes. Yeah. Say it's, they're like states, basically. And, of course, the supposed separatists, I hate that term because they're really just always been Russian flunkies who took those regions over. They didn't get all of either oblast. And so places like Mariupol and Stakhanov and those sorts of places are going to get, the Russians are going to say, well, these are independent republics who are, quote unquote, being attacked by the Ukrainians, so we're going to help them take their territory back. And they'll launch an offensive to do that in eastern Ukraine.
Putin's speech today was a big deal. God help us all. Critics concluded we are being led by total buffoons. Oh, wait, this is about Kamala Harris. Wrong headline. I mean, how it's being seen here in the U.S., right and left. We'll get to that. But furthermore, I mean, how much of an escalation is this? What are you reading? What if they only go just this far and they take these regions where there's a lot of ethnic Russians, and obviously they don't all, the people live there, support them. There's millions of people that live in these regions, but is it possible he just takes this part?
Well, yeah, that's possible, except here's the problem. Say that he does the small ball and he just takes the rest of these two oblasts, right? He still gets all of the negatives of if he attacked the entire country, right? We did just do kind of medium-term sanctions tonight. I would imagine, and I think I can tell you, there's going to be more sanctions tomorrow. But they're still not going to be the like hardcore, badass, crushing sanctions that we're holding back. But if he starts launching an offensive towards, Mariupol or Lviv or any of these places, then yeah, they're going to get hit with every sanction in the book. And so for the Russians, it's sort of like, if they just do the small ball thing, they're going to get hit with all those sanctions. And here's why. And this is important. Putin saying he's going to do this is saying that international law on the sovereignty of states is no longer relevant to him. In other words, meaning I can attack who I want and fuck you. And that is even if he just attacks these two parts of eastern Ukraine, he is attacking a fundamental basis of international law, and he's attacking the rules that keep states from casually assaulting each other. And so even if he just does that, he is basically declaring war on the way the international system resolves disputes without shooting at each other. So it's fundamental, it's huge, it's important, and it's super, super, super dangerous.
A good point. If they're already snapping these sanctions into place for this part of it, why wouldn't he go all the way? I mean, so
right. And what he's doing, and by the way, I know, fucking Matt Taibbi was on here right now. I'd be like, well, why would you sanction them? Why would you do that and then provoke them? But what he's doing, even if he stays in Donetsk and Luhansk, is still an incredibly, you can't allow it to stand. In the same way that, the Germans made an agreement on the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia and then immediately violated it, right? Putin's doing exactly that. And obviously, you can overstate the Munich, Czechoslovakia analogies, but Putin's doing a damn good job of getting us closer to that being relevant.
The agreements, these fake agreements that he made, are good for 10 years with an automatic renewal clause. So they try to make this look official. They've got signed documents, and they're going to defend them militarily, according to our friend Julia Yaffe.
Yeah, they're gonna defend them militarily by attacking the state of Ukraine.
The rest of Ukraine.
Yes, even if they just attack Ukraine in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, that's still, they're attacking Ukraine. This is all an offensive move. None of this is defensive. None of it at all.
Senior Biden official told a group of reporters the White House will likely be rolling out more sanctions against Russia. You mentioned that. Russian stocks sank the most since 2008 global financial crisis. The ruble weakened a third straight day. Putin had to know that was going to happen.
Yep. He doesn't care, though. The Russian oligarchs forget about the Russian people, who are about as important as ants in this entire thing. They have no power, unfortunately, because I don't think they would approve of this if they had an option to say so. But the Russian people have no power, and the Russian oligarchs are dependent on Putin, not the other way around. The way the Russian state is set up, there's a term for it which is escaping me right now, but it basically comes down to that Putin can enforce the law whenever he feels like it. And he encourages these oligarchs to, hide his money and break the rules and bend the rules and do what they want, as long as they follow Putin's directives and goals, then he just doesn't ever have them get arrested for it.
Right.
But the minute that you start to say, whoa, hold on, buddy, this isn't smart, then boom, hey, whoa, you're laundering money. Fuck you, in jail, we're taking on.
Right.
So he gives them the orders. The idea that he can be hurt by the oligarchs not loving any of this, for sure. But the idea that in the short run, there's some sort of thing that's going to happen, the oligarch's going to get mad and overthrow him, that's bullshit. It's not going to happen. We're in for a long, hopefully Cold War.
So there's still hope that it's not going to be as violent as some people have predicted. I mean, going all the way to Ukraine would certainly guarantee that, right? I mean, they're not going to not fight, right? I mean, at least that's what all the analysis seems to be from the Ukrainian people themselves.
The Ukrainians are going to fight. The problem for the Ukrainians is that the Russians will control the air, and they have a very, very powerful artillery and missile strike capability. So what the Russians are going to try to do is hold the Ukrainian army in place and pound the shit out of it, and then send the tanks around. They'll envelop them and try to destroy them after they have fixed them in place and beaten the crap out of them with artillery. And that is something that in Western Ukraine they can very much do because it's a very open country. It's good tank country. It's not a lot of hills. It's not a lot of forests, etc. And that's very much historically what the Russians love to do. They kind of did a thing in Ukraine in World War II against the Germans. It's similar. Their problem for the Russians is when they get to the Dniester River on the other side of the Dniester, where there's there are some people, a very few in eastern Ukraine that would support the Russians.
Right.
In Western Ukraine, there's nobody, and it's a much hillier, much more forested place. And, this is sort of the problem for the Russians, is that if Zelensky just says, I will never fucking surrender, fuck you, and say that he pops over the border into Poland and starts a government in exile, this probably never, ever ends for Russia. So it's not like the Russians just come in and boom, they kill everybody and that's it, and fuck you, and it's over. Even in their best case scenario, they're in for a very long occupation with all kinds of drains on their economy and their military and everything else. They're sort of the Austria-Hungary in World War II. They can do one big offensive and then we'll see what happens.
Right.
And without probably China bailing them out, they're fucked. But that doesn't mean the Ukrainians win in that scenario, right? Lots and lots and lots of Ukrainians are going to get killed, tens and tens of thousands. The Russians are bringing in things like thermobaric weapons. The Ukrainians can hold the cities, and that's going to be a problem for the Russians. But the Russians have shown in Syria, for instance, they have absolutely no problem using thermobaric weapons and other kinds
What
of
is a
explosives.
thermobaric weapon? What is that?
It's like napalm on steroids. A simple way to put it.
It's liquid fire.
Yeah, and they will have no problem literally demolishing every city till it looks like.
Come on,
Grozny
really?
Or no, they won't have any problem with that. No, I should be clear. In the military sense, they won't have any problem with that, and Putin certainly won't give a shit. But it's going to be a different world for Western Europeans seeing Mosul with ISIS, right? Yeah, that's awful. They hated it, but it's not that personal to them. When it's happening, between, say, like where we live to Chicago, where it's people that look like us, people who speak a related language, you could get in your car and drive there, right? It's going to be happening. It's going to be on German and French and British and Romanian and Finnish and Swedish news. And, none of this is going to end. This is really the end of an era. Julia Yaffe earlier today, you mentioned her before, she posted, remember this day.
Yeah, I saw
right?
that.
And you've seen me post things like, stop saying, when is this going to happen? Everything's already changed.
Right.
This is a real inflection point, a really big one.
What is it? Why should Americans care?
That's a great question.
I've seen, a lot of concern, obviously, about gas prices, the price of oil going up. I've also seen concerns about a potential all kinds of different cyber attacks that they could do. And obviously, I think it's always worth mentioning that Russia attacked the United States of America by interfering in our election in a huge way. Certainly, we've done that in other countries in the past, but doesn't matter. I mean, we're talking about 2022 and Vladimir Putin, this guy. So it's not like, one might argue he gave us Trump. So why does it matter to Americans?
I honestly would not go that far. I think that the Russians, they certainly attacked us. They certainly tried to influence our elections. They certainly helped Trump happen for sure. But I think and just a short aside, I think our if we get over our own bullshit, there's nothing the Russians can really do in that front. But on the front of cyber attacks also, I mean, the United States can wreck Russia with a cyber attack more easily than Russia can wreck us. And obviously, if we get to that stage, things are in a super dangerous place. And, you know, maybe I take my kid to the family beach house for a while. You know, because DC might.
Unfortunately, it's in Crimea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's my Dasha in near Odessa. But, you know, I think that people overstate. Like, I don't believe Putin is crazy. I think he's fucked up, and I think he's a revanchist, terrible guy. But Putin is like every other dictator. You know, Stalin didn't say, yeah, let's nuke everybody, right? When the Russians had nukes. These guys they're in it for their power and for all the aggrandizement they can get from that. Dying in a nuclear conflagration is not a great way to aggrandize your power. And so I think people kind of panic about that. I think by panicking about that, people give too much power to the coercive methods of a guy like Vladimir Putin. But I do think that certainly some very freaky things are possible. I mean, the American embassy in Lviv, which was in Kiev and then escaped to Lviv, which is just up the road from Poland, are now moving into Poland tonight, which suggests to me that they expect that at least Lviv, which is literally on Ukraine's western border, or maybe more specifically, the American embassy in Lviv is being targeted by the Russians. Because it certainly doesn't make the Ukrainians feel great when we move over to Zamosk or someplace to get out of their country. So, you know, decisions like that are not lightly made. So Russia clearly is showing some interest, as far as I can see, in attacking American assets, at least in Ukraine. And this could get really hairy. I mean, it 100% could get really hairy. But here's the thing. Okay, fine. You know that. Then what? The bottom line is if you start changing your policy and you start stopping supporting people because you're afraid of what might happen, then the countries like Russia will just coerce you out of your shoes. You have to, gird your loins and, be there and be able to stand up. Otherwise, this never ends, and you're fighting in Romania next, and Hungary after that, and Slovakia after that. And, again, people overdo the World War II analogies, but, that's a fairly obvious situation where Putin will keep rolling west until someone stops it.
Well, what about the question? What if you live in Columbus, Ohio? And I'm sorry that you do.
I'm sorry.
What is your concern? That's okay.
Right. So the way the world is designed, as far as trade agreements, international law, reserve currencies, you pick all of those things. They were designed by the United States and our allies at the end of World War II to be generally beneficial to us while still maintaining at least a modicum of fairness for other people. And again, Pete, me, I'm a cynic, and I won't try to say that like everything's awesome for everybody. A lot of it is, there's things that are wrong with the way the world is set up. But it really is very definitely set up in ways that are beneficial, A, for democracies, and B, for the United States. If you like living in a democracy where you can cheaply get goods from overseas and pay a reasonable price for gasoline, and your local factory can trade in Europe without a problem, or in China without a problem,
right.
Egypt without a problem, then you want the systems in the world to be defended. It literally affects how trade agreements affect your job. It literally affects the price of natural gas. It literally affects the price of gasoline. A good example, if this war kicks off in Ukraine, all these airplane flights going to and from Asia to Europe, a lot of them are going to stop being able to fly over Russian, Belarusian, Ukrainian, Black Sea territory, which is going to make those flights longer and more expensive, right? And so you can go through a good example of the price of wheat in Ukraine. Ukraine produces tons and tons of wheat that is sent mostly to Africa and poorer countries. You don't want people starving in Africa. Don't let the Ukrainian wheat harvest get destroyed for 3 years and then be controlled by Russian oligarchs who will squeeze the shit out of everyone on the press, right? You don't want Germany to allow incredibly corrupt politicians, affect our security alliances in Western Europe that save the peace in Western Europe because they're getting paid off by Russian oligarchs or by Vladimir Putin. With board seats at Rosneft or any other Russian company. What you really don't want is the another iteration of the big fact. In the last 100 and so years, the two worst wars in world history started in Europe. You do not want a World War III that starts in Europe. There probably won't be a Europe left if that happens. There's a lot of men. There's an enormous ability to wreak havoc, and these countries can. It kicks off in Europe. The rest of the world pays for it. Last time around, it was 100 million people died. You don't want this. This is so bad in so many ways for your pocketbook. It's bad for our politics, by the way, because there's clearly a bit of a virus of authoritarianism rolling in the world, right? And you'll see, like Tulsi Gabbard. I've been calling Tulsi Gabbard lately. She's putting up all these appeasement statements about Putin and Ukraine. And other politicians are as well, who are more or less mainstream. These people are doing this because they see it as this sort of authoritarian mindset is a way to get power. And if you let a dictator overseas do this and start seizing countries, it's going to increase sort of the cult of Putin in American politics. And more people will think that's a viable way in which to engage in politics. Most Americans don't remember how many fascists there were in the United States in the 1930s or in Europe or, United Kingdom or whatever. You have to fight for democracy, however flawed. And yes, we're not going to put troops into Ukraine, but we've got to make sure that Putin pays a heavy price if he invades in any major way, or we will be thinking about putting troops into Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. And I can tell you, Pete, I talked to people this weekend who are very sober analysts of all this, and they're saying we really have to beef up in the Baltic states. Right. Because if Putin gets away with this, quite likely to challenge in a military way the Baltic states, even though they're in NATO. And before he does that, it's every chance in the world that he tries to snap up Moldova, which is the country between him and between Ukraine and Romania. But if he gets Ukraine, he'll just roll right into Moldova. Moldova has almost no army.
Is that the same as Moldova?
I'm sorry, Moldova. Yeah.
I mean, so maybe you say Moldova.
You could literally, Putin will have taken Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova, all in one shot, and now be right on the border of Slovakia and Hungary and Romania, and he'll be in a much stronger position to muscle these countries and push them around. And we don't want to have, we don't even want to have a Cold War if we can possibly avoid it, right? We don't want to be in a military situation where a Russian army could quickly jump in and overrun, the entire industrial heartland of Europe. That's really fucking scary, and it's really expensive. Nobody remembers any of this, how insanely expensive and how dangerous the Cold War was in Europe. So bottom line is, it's as a pocketbook issue, it makes every sense in the world to keep this guy in his box as much as possible. As a strategic issue, even more so.
Bill B in D.C. I have no more questions unless you want to add anything. This is just absolutely crazy, and a lot of good people. A lot of good people to follow out there. We've mentioned Julia Yaffe. I'm going to be talking to Terrell Starr tomorrow. Hopefully,
nice.
He's getting his due, which is pretty cool because he's been putting in work as a journalist for years, and now everybody's calling him to talk to him, and that's awesome. Anybody else you think is following? And by the way, I do have one more question, an important question. I've seen you sharing these maps on social media about Eastern Europe, there, Ukraine, and how much different are we in 2022 when you have 1 million satellites in space and everyone can track basically everything that's happening? I mean, I don't know exactly how it works, but basically you can see troop movements. We can all see them.
Sure. It's called OSINT. So tell people do hashtag OSINT, which is open source intelligence is what that means. The maps I post are of the publicly available, flights with transponders that are clearly advertising their existence. So people shouldn't think that I've got some inside knowledge. Just go to Flight Radar 24 and you can see these. You're seeing the things that either commercial flights or private flights that have to show their location. You're also seeing some of the surveillance platforms, the Rivet Joint and all that stuff, where they are intentionally showing their location, partly because they don't want the Russians to be idiotic and shoot them down by mistake.
Right.
But also, when they're right around Kharkiv and the Rivet Joint goes up and down 65 times in a day, looking over the border into the Russian buildup, they're making a point that, like, Vladdy, we know what you're doing, right? But it is still amazing the degree to which you can look at and see what's happening as an individual. Back in the day, you used to have to really be in the machine in order to figure all this out.
Right. Yeah. It's harder for governments to lie and it's
Although I would say that people need to be quite careful about overreading, or more importantly, taking all these, don't just go to like any random person who says they're an expert and take what they're doing or take what they're saying as gospel. I would say that who's the guy, Elliot, whatever the guy, Pete, I'm blanking. It's the organization that tracks all of the Russian money and everything else. They followed up on the Skripal poisoning
organization.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's right.
Basically, sorry.
I'll look it up.
Okay, yeah. Look, throw that in at the end of this. There's organizations that are out there that are pretty well known that do this. You want to follow an organization, not just randos on Twitter, because they have you can get a lot of dumb stuff out there. But it definitely makes a big difference that we can see this. That goes both ways, of course. Putin loves it on some level because it lets him signal more clearly. And don't be surprised if the Russians are intentionally doing what they call Meskorovka, which is you show a unit here, but you really only have like 3 tanks in that unit in one place, and they're all 60 miles down the road, right? I mean, so take everything with a grain of salt, but it definitely helps for people to at least understand what it looks like and what it's going to feel like. And what's going to happen, Pete, when and if the Russians do this, you're going to see how utterly vicious, nasty, and violent and utterly inhuman this Russian invasion will look like. And that will have a very powerful effect on the way that the West responds.
Right.
Will not be a war that's happening or a Uyghur genocide that no one ever sees. This is going to be people blown apart on a street that looks like the street that you just went to your Christmas market on.
Yeah.
And that's going to be different. Going to be different.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. I really appreciate it, pal.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Really great insights and sources.
Sorry to be so uncheerful. No. I apologize to Julia Yaffe today. I said, I'm really sorry that I think I was pretty much right.
Yeah, well, you have been so far. Maybe you'll stop being soon.
I would love to be wrong.
All right, Ben. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
All right, Bill B. in D.C. We always love hearing from him. Thank you, sir. Go follow him on Twitter. He's a great follow on Twitter, at Bill B. in D.C. That's how we pay everybody in Twitter followers. All right, well, I got to go because I have a huge day coming up of interviews. I'm scheduled to talk to Catherine Stewart, who's an expert on the evangelical power movement. Terrell Stars in Ukraine, scheduled to talk to him. Also, Andrea Chalupa on Ukraine, going to talk with her. Tim Wise and Barry Ritholtz, as well as Wajid Ali. I might be interviewing like 7 people tomorrow, so I got to get out of here and post this baby up. Can't do it without your support. Love you guys. Thank you very much for it. Go to standupwithpete.com, standupwithpete.com right now and sign up for a paid subscription. John Carroll, take us away, brother.
Stand up. I think you're driving wheels been leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know us right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. We got to open up the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up. That's right. We got to rise up. You got to stand up. You gotta stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. And even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. This is the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, to make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.